Hello there. It is an 11 o'clock. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Quentin Russell. I am the content marketing specialist here at Doc365. And today we're going to be covering, as the next part of our SharePoint Basics series, the term store and how to manage it in SharePoint Online. Now, for those of you who aren't quite aware of what the term store is, basically, it's kind of an assortment of terms in your SharePoint tenant that you use to tag things. That's kind of a really basic version. We're going to be covering more on that as we get into the webinar. So, getting started with today's agenda. So first of all, we're going to do a brief thing on Doc365, our history and our mission. Don't worry, just a quick 1 to 2 minute thing where we'll cover who we are, what we do, and why we do it. After that, we're going to launch into the meat of the webinar. So we're going to define the term store. After that, we're going to go into what term store management is. After that, I will go into a live SharePoint environment where I will show you how to use the term store and perform various activities therein. After that, we'll do a quick question and answer session at the end of the webinar where we will answer any questions that you may have regarding the term store and how to use it in SharePoint Online. The way that is going to work is that when you ask questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I will, at the end of the webinar during this session, go over all the chat, answer any questions that you may have. If I can't answer anything or, fail to provide a satisfactory answer during this time, I will make sure to, send you the answer after the fact in the webinar recording email. So with that said, let's kind of jump into the meat of things. So who are we? So we're Doc365. We're a company located in Jacksonville, Florida. We have over 17 years of experience working with SharePoint to deliver exceptional productivity solutions. We've worked with a wide range of companies in a variety of different industries to implement a diverse array of SharePoint productivity tools. So these include intranet portals, contract management systems, CRM solutions, safety management systems, and more. Our mission is to break down silos and build stronger employee engagement across your organization. So what does that mean? Well, when people, as you hire employees, as you bring them on, as they work in your company, they acquire experience over time. They run into different things that they might not have, thought they were going to encounter. They learn lessons, they internalize these things, and they grow as employees. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they share this knowledge, that they share this experience with other people. So what you essentially have is you have a bunch of different people with a bunch of different information where they could all benefit one another, but they're not spreading it out. So our aim is to provide you with tools and resources that you can use to break down these silos, encourage the spread of information, and get employees to engage and collaborate with each other in a meaningful way that can drive your business and help you do what you do, but better. In terms of our upcoming webinars, so for those of you who don't know, we do a webinar every week. So we alternate between different business-related webinars and our SharePoint Basics series, where we cover different Office 365 and SharePoint topics and show you how to use this wonderful tool that Microsoft offers. So next week on February 9th, we will be taking a look at how intranet portals drive engagement. The week after that will be the next SharePoint Basics series. We'll be talking about governance, so how to build a governance plan and how to really effectively govern your SharePoint environment. After that, we'll be taking a look at how to choose between Office 365 and Google Drive. We'll be taking a look at the benefits of each platform, and then really taking an in-depth look at why you would use which platform and which would probably work best for your business. And then finally, on March 2nd, we'll be doing another SharePoint Basics series. This time we'll be talking about indexing and crawling. So we'll be exploring how that works and how you can properly set up your system so that you can ensure that all of your data can be found pretty quickly and accurately. With that said, let's jump into why you guys are here, term store management. So another term for term store management is managed metadata. If you're unaware of what metadata is essentially just data about data. It's in SharePoint specifically. It's a series of tags that you can apply to documents that allow you to sort, store, and find them. So examples of metadata include the title of a document, the author of a document, when it was created, when was the last time it was updated, et cetera, et cetera. Your SharePoint environment comes pre-built with a series of different metadata tags that SharePoint considers important. So all of the examples that I listed before come pre-built in with your SharePoint tenant. However, using the term store, you can essentially add extra little metadata tags to organize your information based off of how you're using it. How you do that is through the term store. It's essentially a large toy box of metadata that you can reference all across your SharePoint sites or site collections. And generally, these are expressed in the columns that you use on a list, library, or site level. So taking a look right here. So you have the name, that's basic metadata. Last modified, basic pre-built-in metadata, default, and then compliance assessment, key points, ID. All of these things are custom metadata that we added into the SharePoint environment that you see in the screenshot using the term store. So how does it work? Well, pretty simple. So this is how the term store is structured. You access the term store in the SharePoint Admin Center. And when you get in there, you'll see something that says, you'll see taxonomy term store. What this is this is basically the technical term for the term store. That's what people are going to refer to it in a lot of technical blogs. The terms are interchangeable. However, a term group is essentially a series of term sets. Actually, you know what? We're going to start from the bottom up. I think that'll be a bit more that'll help you conceptualize this a lot more. So like I said, a term is essentially just a metadata tag that you've added within the term store that your SharePoint sites and libraries and lists can reference to help you organize and sort data. Term sets are related terms. Essentially, they're metadata categories that you can build out. You can use these to help keep your term store organized and from really becoming an unintuitive mess, because you can just throw terms out into the ether. You can just add them to the term store, but it does. You can run into some issues with organizing and sorting. Another thing that you can do is you can have nested sets of terms in a document library. So if you have a term set for, say, document management, and then you have a term for, X document, you can have a categorical list show document library term X, and that will show in the URL bar in SharePoint Online. And then a term group is basically just a set of term sets. They all, however, what differentiates them from a term set and a term group is that term groups all have common security requirements. Basically, only specific users who have been designated to be a part of certain groups can manage what's in that group. We're not really going to touch on how to set that up. We've done a previous webinar, specifically a SharePoint Basics series on user and group management. So if you want to, you can go back and find that. It's on our website, mydoc365.com/webinars. If you scroll down, you should be able to find the recording of that and access it for free on our website. So that said, basically, you really only want to use term groups when you have term sets that need unique access or security needs. So essentially, if you have things that can only be accessed by managers, things that can only be accessed by like certain high-level executives, things that should only be accessed by specific people, that sort of information. Now, one thing that you should note with terms is that terms can be broken up into two categories. You can have global term sets, global term sets / global terms, and local term sets / local terms. Essentially, these global term sets can be used all across all of your sites within your term store. So all across your SharePoint tenant, and then local term sets can only be used within a specific site collection. One thing to note is that these are generally created when you build when you add metadata tags and begin using terms and keywords within the actual SharePoint page itself, because you don't have to do the top-down approach of adding something to the term store and then using it within your SharePoint libraries. You can actually add and create custom metadata tags within the list itself, and then those will be added back to your SharePoint term store. But we'll go into the specifics of that in a bit when I show you the actual term store itself. But essentially so the breakdown is global can be used anywhere, local can just be used in a specific spot. And then there's the difference between terms and keywords. They both show up in the term store, but essentially managed terms are the predefined sets of values. So essentially managed terms are you going into the term store saying, this is the term group, this is the term set, this is the term itself, moving on. And then enterprise keywords are basically the keywords, the phrases, tags that users add on the site level that then get added to the term store from that point automatically. So yeah, that's basically the term store in a nutshell. It's a big grab box of tags and keywords. So essentially just term store management is using and managing the term store. If done properly, it can help your organization build consistency in a way that basically it's how users enter information, it's how they manage your data, it's how they sort everything in the SharePoint environment. It's actually a key part of governance, and we'll kind of touch on that in 2 weeks when we go through that SharePoint Basics series. So kind of taking a look at things, we're going to go jump into that live SharePoint environment like I was saying. So as you can see right here, this is doc SharePoint environment, yada, yada. You can see here are our different products. If you have questions about those, feel free to reach out to us and set up a demo. So in order to access the term store, you'll want to go to the Office 365 admin site. Do note that in order to access the term store, you do need to be a SharePoint admin. Pretty simple. So then what you'll do is go to show all, and then you'll want to specifically go to the SharePoint Admin Center. So we're going to let that load in. So as you can see, this is the SharePoint Admin Center. If you've never used this before, it basically shows you what's going on within your SharePoint site, how people are using your files, how people are using the site in general, and any messages that come up. And it'll also show you this, whether it's actually healthy or not. But we're not really going to talk about that. Instead, we're going to go talk about the term store. So this is the term store. As you can see right here, it says taxonomy, fancy term for a term store. Right here at this level, you can see who has access to what and who is an admin. So admins have the ability to completely modify everything within a term store. As you can see, only one person here has it. It is the Joe Joseph account. You can also see what languages it works with. So you can have English, or you can also translate these. You can set it up to translate things over into other languages. So basically anything that exists within, Slovenian, Slovak, Serbian, anything that Microsoft has in its servers. You're really not going to be using that unless you're working multinationally or have multinational workers. So really don't worry about that. You'll also see right here, this is the unique identifier. This essentially is the tag within SharePoint. This is the value within SharePoint that says this is the term store and this is what things refer back to. You're really not going to be using the unique identifier for any of the term sets, term groups, or anything. You'll use them on higher level stuff, but just for basic term store management, don't worry about it. So this right here, we're going to go to people real quick. So this is our first term group. So as you can see right here, you have a couple options. You can add the term set, you can rename it, delete it, or import a term set into here. So the way that works is you will pull it up and you will upload a term set using a CSV. So let's open up the CSV real quick to show you how that would need to be formatted. So really quick, we're going to share that. So as you can see right here, this, if you were to manually import terms into a term group, this is how you would do it. Pretty simple, pretty easy. This is the structure. Really don't worry about this. You might have to do this if you are trying to make a lot of massive changes and you're using and you have multiple term groups that share term sets. But realistically, you know, most people aren't going to be worrying about this sort of thing. I'm just showing it to you to be thorough. So then right here, you can see the group managers. Basically, these are the people who have full edit and contribution permissions. They can also add new users to manage the group. And then you can see the contributors. They don't have the ability to edit terms, but they can add new terms. So that's pretty simple. And again, you see the unique identifier. Don't worry about that. As you can see right here, again, you have the same, everything that's up here is also right here. So you don't even have to click on this stuff. Pretty simple. So as you can see right here, here are the different term sets. So basically, again, this is just showing the department. You can add a description if you want to. I highly recommend adding a description because like it says right here, it essentially helps people understand the term set and why you're using it, which is really good for people who are potentially coming in after you making changes. Again, you can see the owner. So basically all of the people who maintain this term set. You can also see the stakeholders, basically these are the people who are responsible for maintaining it, ensuring that people are following what they're supposed to be doing, that it's healthy, that sort of information. Here you can actually get into the nitty-gritty of usage settings. So you can say, okay, can users add terms from a tagging application? Come in here, click this. You can either change it to closed, so only people with specific permissions can add to this or not. And then you come into available for tagging. So can people use it within your SharePoint sites? And then finally, the sort order. When people are using these terms, how do they come up in the different options? So you can either do alphabetical or custom. Generally, just go with alphabetical unless you have a specific reason not to. Here you can have navigation. So basically, can people use this term set and terms within this term set to create things like URLs, target pages? Can they add things to the navigation bar? Again, pretty simple. Turn it on. You can either enable it or turn it off. Finally, you have some advanced stuff. So you can create some translations for this term set. Again, really don't mess with it if you have to. And then custom properties, where you can essentially have additional data that you add to it, you know, a different way to measure the term set. Really don't mess with that unless you know what you're doing, because otherwise you risk breaking something, have things go wrong, and really just you don't have to worry about it, essentially. And again, right here, everything that's up here, right there. Moving on to the actual terms themselves, what you can do, pretty simple. You can add a term, type it right there. That is a subterm that comes in under this, you know, that comes under the engineering term. The way that'll go is that'll basically go, okay, here, so like in a URL or something, when you're accessing a document using this, it'll be department/engineering/ whatever the subterm we add here is. You know, I'm not going to change anything here. Again, you can see the usage settings. So again, is it available for tagging? What's the unique identifier? And then this shows you what term sets it's a part of, because you can have one term be a part of multiple term sets. And that makes, so basically what you do is it makes it really easy for you to say, okay, I want to say, copy the term, move this under from department to say job title, and then it'll show up there as being used in the job title term set. This right here, you can also pin a term. Basically, it says that this is an important term, don't mess with it. Reusing a term is essentially the same as copying the term. You can also merge terms. So essentially, that makes it so that they identify. So if you have multiple terms that are similar enough, you can merge them and then they will overlap at the different points. And then finally, you can deprecate a term. Basically, what deprecating a term does is it leaves it in the term set, but it makes it so that no one can use it or see it. Really, you'd only use that for records purposes. So if you have other places that are, so if you have infrastructure that is using that term, but you don't want anyone to use it going forward, you would just deprecate the term. That's pretty simple. You can also have shared custom properties. Basically, if you have a custom property, so shared versus local custom properties is pretty simple. Within this term set right here, you can add custom properties to a term. And that won't apply in any of the other places that the term is being used. And then you can also have the shared custom properties, which is essentially any custom properties that apply to the term, and it will go into any of the place, and that will apply to any of the places that that term is being used. So that's pretty simple. Finally, if you come here to the system, so the system is a bit different. This is essentially generated by SharePoint itself, and things are added to here when as people go into different lists and document libraries and do other and add their own custom lists and terms from like what I was saying earlier. So coming here to like keywords and everything. So these are just things that are being used within SharePoint libraries, but haven't been added to the term store. That's pretty simple. Again, you can just move the term to where it needs to go. So say document sender, board meeting, this is where I want to move that term, easy peasy. Finally, you have in the last little bit of our live demonstration, let me close this real quick, you have orphan terms. So these are terms that were originally part of one term set, and then they were being shared with other term sets, but the original term was the original term set was deleted. So now you just have these terms that are floating around. They're still in use. What you want to do is you just want to come in here. We don't have any right now, but if we did, you just come in here, click on the term, reassign it to somewhere else, and you'd be good to go. So that's term store management. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. You don't have to really do a lot of thinking about it. So let's head back over to the PowerPoint. There are a couple things that you need to keep in mind with term store management. First of all, there is no versioning. So if someone makes a change to a term set, a term group, there's no way to roll that back or go back to original version. You just have to go back and manually change it, which can be an issue if you have multiple people working within your term store. Additionally, terms don't have an author field. So you can't tell who added or changed a term. You can narrow it down based off of the permissions, like who has access to editing, who has access to, changing the terms. But the more people have access to a term group or set, generally makes it harder to track that down. This is why you should be, if you have sensitive data, if you have sensitive terms that you don't want people touching, you should have separate term groups with restricted access and restricted editing permissions so that you can keep these sensitive terms safe. Another thing is that you can't track term usage in your SharePoint tenant. You can see what people are adding custom outside of your term store because those show up in the system generated terms. But you can't see if people are actually using the terms that you're handing down. So that's why it's kind of important to really plan your term store ahead of time. If you add to it, you need to make sure it's going to be used because otherwise it's just kind of sitting there. And if no one's using it, you've wasted time. Additionally, there's no way to backup or restore your term store library. So basically, if something goes wrong, something gets deleted, data gets corrupted, it can't be restored. So that's why it's really important to keep documentation, maybe export your term store to so people can see what's going on, and so that you have that backup just in case something goes wrong. Most likely nothing will go wrong, but it's better to expect the worst, hope for the best, and be prepared than to, be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Finally, you cannot sync your term store across multiple Office 365 subscriptions. This really isn't an issue for smaller companies. However, if you are using multiple subscriptions, if you have multiple SharePoint tenants, you will need to build a new term store each time. So like I said, really only a bigger issue for companies with multiple locations using multiple SharePoint and Office 365 subscriptions. So just some final thoughts on the term store itself. Basically, really just plan it out ahead of time. Think about what you're going to be doing, how you want your data to be organized, when you want to be using it, what you want people to be doing with that data, and then plan your terms around that. And then you really just need to, when you implement this, laid down strict rules that say, hey, this is how we're doing it. This is what you need to be using. Do not go outside of the constraints of this system, because otherwise you end up with the Wild West with a ton of different tags and different, categories floating around that are only being used in one-off places that are very different than what other people are doing. So yeah, basically just plan it out, be smart about it, keep things organized, stay on top of it as often as you can. With that said, are there any questions from the audience? If there are not any questions, I think we are done with today's webinar. So if you'd like to contact us, our phone number is 904-309-9970. We'd love to answer any questions you have about term store management, SharePoint, or we'd also love to show you any of our product line that you kind of got like a small preview of today. Like I said, we do a ton of different SharePoint productivity solutions. We basically take your SharePoint tenant and build powerful productivity tools on top of it. So not only is it easy to use, easy to learn, but it's also affordable because you're not having to pay for whole new infrastructure. You're not having to pay for servers or anything. You're just having to pay for us to come in, take your SharePoint and help and build something amazing out of it, to really just help you get the most out of your investment. Again, if you want to reach out to us, you can email us at info@mydoc365.com. If you have any questions for me personally, you can reach out to me at qrussell@mydoc365.com. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn at doc365. We would love to, hear from you in the future. So again, this has been SharePoint Basic Series Term Store Management. I'm Quentin Russell, Content Marketing Specialist here at Doc365. And I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much, and goodbye.